Hi, I'm Shelley, and welcome to the Unlocking Intercultural Agility podcast. In this podcast, we explore the hidden dynamics of how people lead, communicate, and work together across cultures and complexity. So together with Marco, and from guests around the world, we unpack practical ways to navigate misunderstanding, build trust, and lead effectively in an increasingly interconnected world. So welcome, Marco, today. Very excited about our conversation.
Me too.
In this conversation, we're going to explore why leadership feels harder today than it did a few years ago. So across business, geopolitics, and society, trust is declining. Complexity is increasing, and leaders are navigating tensions that no longer have simple solutions. What happens when technical expertise and just your general understanding of leadership is not enough? So how do leaders avoid misunderstanding systems and risks in these very multicultural and complex environments? So, Marco, that's what we're going to talk about today. I know you're ready.
It's a lot. I'm ready.
It's a lot. It's a lot. We're talking about it a lot lately. So, Marco, leaders have always faced change. That's a given. But what feels different about the leadership environment now than even a few years ago?
Yeah, that's a very real issue that leaders sometimes don't even know how to quantify themselves. But there's a number of things I notice, and that is, on the one hand, the number of global issues that leaders need to deal with has increased, and we'll mention quite a few of those. But also, what's happening is leaders are under pressure, and as a result of that, they are almost getting into firefighting mode, which means they're busy with real issues that need to be resolved right now or yesterday. And that means they have very little or sometimes no time left to reflect, to pause, to slow down, to invest in their own growth and development. So it's a really challenging time. And when you look at the research on leadership, it's reflected. Leaders are tired. Leaders are stressed. Leaders are sometimes indicating I'm either at burnout or close to burnout. So the intensity of it and the speed of it is higher than it has been, at least to my memory, in recent memory.
Yes, I see that. Even just listening to the news every day, I can hear it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I can't imagine having to face some of the things and lead through them. And so I think I've heard you say in the past that there's interconnected dilemmas, like the things they're facing are somehow interconnected. What does that mean? And how is it different than just solving a problem, like a regular old problem?
Yeah, when you actually look at the main challenges, the main dilemmas, they are not going to be solved tomorrow. They might not even be solved in our lifetime or ever. You just have to look at our health issues. We just came from the time of COVID. We are now in the news with another strain of Ebola, which is apparently difficult to contain. The expectation is that there will be other pandemics of sorts. When you look at the recent economic developments, tariffs, trade wars, new alliances formed, a huge issue there. We, for the first time, have over 60 active conflicts in the world. It's never been that high. On top of that, it's expected that this year, for the first time in history, humanity will spend $3 trillion on defense. Again, we've never done that before. Then you have issues of migration that is linked to talent. Many countries are suffering because they can't find the right talent for empty positions. And that's a global phenomena. And then, of course, the issue of climate also is added to that. So all of these issues, you don't solve that by solving the problem. And even if I have a solution that I think might work, I need to sit around the table with people who have very different agendas, different philosophies, religious persuasions, etc. And they will take the conversation in a different direction than I wanted to go. So solving problems very often is not even possible, and it requires sometimes a miracle for everybody to align. And we've seen, you mentioned the news. There's plenty of examples in the news where those miracles don't happen. The other thing that I find is just overcoming challenges, like even just saying, overcoming the challenge of climate change. It almost now sounds like, yeah, that's never going to happen. Um, so, so then this idea of navigating dilemmas or managing dilemmas becomes actually a much better way to think about it. And leaders very often have not arrived there yet. They are still, because they were trained as engineers, they were trained in business degrees where you get a case study, you study the case study, you find the one solution, and you get a grade based on the best solution you have found. But a lot of the issues in our world are not that simple. And there's many times the competing agendas, competing interests, competing good solutions. You might have 3 or 4 good solutions at the table, and then people don't have the skills to navigate that and find a way forward. So thinking about our problems as problems to solve is unhelpful very often, or challenges to overcome, which is then a perilous pursuit. Thinking about them as dilemmas to steward or dilemmas to manage is actually much healthier. But it's hard to have that mind shift because it's really a paradigm shift from a leadership point of view.
Yes, I see that. Yes, that makes sense. And do you think as a result of that, well, we're seeing all this fragmentation in trade, in sanctions, in supply chains, and investment restrictions, and even like gold reserves. So what are they telling us? Yeah, what are these signals telling us?
That's an interesting one. I've been tracking, there's lots of ads when you're on the internet of, gold is going to go to an all-time high. This is the time to invest in gold. But it's very interesting to watch gold because gold is almost from an economic point of view, is a barometer of trust. So when people are not trusting the economy, and they are not trusting currency, or they are not trusting political leaders, then they go back to what can be trusted. And gold is still perceived to be a trustworthy place to put your money, to put your reserves, or to put your contingency plan. So there's several things happening. One is the amount of gold that people are hoarding, governments particularly, is at an all-time high. And the other thing that's happening is the Federal Reserve in the US and the UK in London especially, those are the 2 main places. New York and London are the places where gold reserves are held on behalf of other governments. But because trust is dropping globally, people are saying, wait a minute, can I trust that my gold is safe in New York? Or can I trust that my gold is safe in the UK? So in the last 2 years, you've seen governments say, wait a minute, maybe we need to take some of that gold back home. Maybe it's safer to keep it in the central bank in our country. So people are stocking up on gold, and people are starting to move it around. Some governments are in big discussions about this. And it's an indicator of trust. And it's almost like, it's like a canary in the gold mine almost.
Yes. Wow. I see how that impacts trust. And that trust piece seems to add to the level of complexity that leaders are facing.
Yeah.
And so what is this complexity doing to leaders personally? So as you're interacting with leaders, which I know you do all the time, what symptoms are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to just unpack trust a little bit more, because gold is the beginning of it, or one of the barometers, so to speak. But I mentioned a few things. So there's a very credible trust barometer, the Ederman trust barometer, and they mention that trust is down in institutions. So people don't trust institutions anymore. People don't trust both the governance and the government. So how they're leading our nations and the laws they pass. People are very suspicious about the economy and how things are shifting. People are very worried about security and military activities. I already mentioned over 60 active conflicts in the world. And people are nervous about currency, especially the US dollar has lost a lot of trust, a lot of credibility. And that's directly linked to, can I trust the government that mints, that prints dollars?
Yeah.
And at the moment, unfortunately, most people around the world say that we can't trust. So there's all these elements of trust that are starting to break down. And that then has an impact. We're talking about leadership. So when you look at research by McKinsey and Pricewaterhouse and the World Economic Forum, leaders are less trusted globally in general. And there's more to say about that. But because of all these institutions and governments and the economy and the warring nations and factions, they say, well, then I can't trust those leaders either. So that has a significant impact on. And we often talk about how to identify trust breakers and trust builders from an intercultural point of view. And that's where you start to look at things like, do people respect each other? Do they engage in a respectful manner with each other? Are they reliable when they promise things? And reliability also has to do with, speaking the truth versus lying. And that has to do with honesty. So can I honestly trust my leaders? And if I am a leader, do I invite people into an honest relationship, whatever that practically looks like interculturally? And lastly, are leaders open? Are they open to feedback? Are they open to wise counsel or competing counsel maybe? Are they open to listen to people who have a radically different view? And are they using that to inform wise decision making? So those four words, respect, reliability, honesty, openness, for us, we're always looking at what's happening with those words and how do leaders live those out, either in a constructive way or a not so constructive way. And in general, leaders are struggling because of all these moving parts in the world.
Yes. And when you explain trust like that with those four very clear words, almost like clear barometers of how it's going, I can see with all of the interconnected dilemmas, this is adding to all of this stress for leaders.
Yeah.
And so what are you seeing, like, as you're talking to them? Are you seeing the effects of of the complexity?
Yeah. And I already mentioned some of the research shows that leaders are more stressed, more challenged in what they're faced with today. They are. There's a lot of talk about being tired. I already mentioned earlier that leaders don't have enough time for themselves. So it's go, go, go all the time. And a lot of the times it's firefighting type of time. And that is tiring on all fronts. So being able to stay healthy and practice good wellness, balancing in day-to-day life, those are issues. And what I also find is that as a result of that, innovation, curiosity starts to drop. And if anything, in the climate that leaders are faced with, curiosity is crucial. And we talk about being a cultural learner. A cultural learner is curious. And we find that leaders start being curious. They start to focus on what they do know and the practices that used to work in the past. And that becomes a dilemma then, because if I don't find innovative ways to manage those dilemmas, then I get discouraged. And that leads to not making decisions. So people are sort of spinning their wheels, as they say, and then you get decision fatigue that starts to slip in. So many things get discussed in meetings, but the final decision doesn't get made, and then they come back to it the next time, and then those become difficult conversations that you just don't want to have anymore. People are emotionally tired, they're physically tired, and they have too many fires to put out, and then they don't want to come back to it. And what I also have found, we saw this already during COVID, that teams that were healthy, they would relationally connect, even on a virtual call.
Yes.
But teams that were not so healthy relationally, they very quickly drifted into tick box mentality, I call it. So it's from task to task to task. We need to do this. We need to do this. Did you do this? I need X, Y, Z from you. And that then communication really becomes all about tasks and not about connecting as human beings. And that is happening across the board as well. So healthy teams, they have the discipline and the resilience to stay connected relationally. But other situations where that's not so strong, what is there quickly ebbs away. And that leads to the topic that I'm passionate about. And then in all of that, if you combine all of that together, it's incredibly hard to maintain a healthy culture. Because culture crafting and culture nurturing takes effort and energy and time. And most leaders say, I don't have the energy, I don't have the creativity, and I don't have the time. I've got other things that need to happen yesterday.
Wow. That's a lot. That is a lot. That's really helpful to understand all of the layers of what is happening right now with leaders. What are leaders commonly, so in that vein, what are they misreading right now? So that's what you just described. So what are you seeing that they're misreading, especially when they lead across different cultures, different geographies, and diverse teams? I mean, there's, with all of that complexity and then all the diversity, what are they missing?
Well, first of all, I would say there is hope.
Okay.
I meet many leaders who are really doing well despite all of this. But what the picture I painted is the general across the board. That's what the research says on leadership. That's what we see in terms of the global trends. At the same time, there are beautiful examples, and we'll talk about it in the second part of leaders that are, rising above it and finding ways through it. But at the same time, one of the things those leaders do well is they are incredibly zealous about downtime, and they find the time to slow down, to reflect, to take distance, and that is what we call part of that is perception management. So how am I perceiving myself in this role and in this situation? How am I perceiving the others that I'm working with? So fancy term is stakeholder management, but just pushing back and taking time. How's it going? How's it going relationally between my core team, with other stakeholders, with partners, with clients, with suppliers? And then managing those relationships, reflecting on them, and then thinking about the context. What is happening? The context is shifting all the time. And what consequences does that have for us? So leaders who don't do that, they just keep running. And as a result of that, they do complain about tiredness and burnout and stress and etc. So the other thing I find that if you're in that situation, is when somebody pushes back on your idea, it's very easy to see it as a critique, or as, oh, you're just slowing us down, or seeing it as, oh, you're my enemy even. And I've seen that. So it's almost like, as a leader living with open hands versus with closed hands. And I see leaders who are under stress, and it's normal. It's a normal human reaction. You don't operate with open hands anymore. And then you're missing a lot of opportunity to really embrace the idea of others, work with them, and integrate them into a strategy or a way forward. And of course, the other thing that we're passionate about on this podcast is if your emotional intelligence is already challenged through all of this, your intercultural intelligence is definitely going to be challenged, because they have to dovetail together. So we always say in our intercultural agility work, a good baseline of emotional intelligence is like the stepping stone into developing healthy intercultural agility. So if that baseline is not there, if your emotional intelligence bandwidth is diminished, then navigating intercultural complexity becomes even much harder.
I see that. Yes. I see that. This has been very helpful. This is a great picture of where leaders are today. And in part 2, we're going to talk more about solutions and things we offer. But before we close, Marco, what are some things leaders should sit with right now?
Yeah, I think, and I'm guilty of this myself. It's like, how much time do I really zealously carve out for myself to slow down? And if you're a leader, a manager, and you're listening to this, and ask yourself that question. It is about survival. It's about staying healthy as a leader, and being in a place where you continue to add value to your people and to the organization. So I would say that's the main thing, because I'm a firm believer in what I can do today to become a better leader determines how my leadership will show up tomorrow.
And that's good.
There's only one today.
That's right.
So, yeah.
That is good. That is really good. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Well, continue to watch this page. Look for part 2. We're excited to have you join us for that. We'll see you next time on Unlocking Intercultural Agility. Thank you.